Hi, I'm James Cherry, CTO at Northdoor, a IT consultancy based in London. And today we're going to be talking a little around application security and reducing vulnerabilities in applications. And I'm joined by John Smith from Veracode, one of Northdoor's partners. Hi, John, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Tell me a little bit about Veracode.
Okay, so Veracode is a company. We provide software as a service testing capabilities for your software. We can find vulnerabilities in your software using our static analysis technology, software composition analysis technology, dynamic analysis, and we also provide a range of sort of supporting technologies that help you to make software security a part of the way that you're delivering software.
Okay, that's great. So we help organizations improve their DevOps processes and modernize application delivery. And one of the main things and the feedback we get from companies is the reason behind doing this is so that they can deliver applications, new functionality, new features far quicker. And we're seeing companies go from maybe those 1 or 2 releases a year into even down to a week or 2-week type cycles. But we often see that this sometimes presents challenges with the security team who aren't used to that type of cadence and product going out the door that quick, and it worries them. Is this something that you see in the field a lot?
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, modern software delivery, velocity. That's the magic word, really. It's all about going fast. And I think traditionally, security teams, well, security has been known as the department that likes to say no. They've often been viewed as an inhibitor to innovation rather than a driver of innovation within businesses, and I think often that's unfair. I think security enables a huge amount of innovation, but it's certainly true that it's difficult for security to feel comfortable about new software being delivered into production pretty much at the click of a button without feeling comfortable that there's been enough security testing or that the assurance levels are there.
Yeah.
So I certainly think security teams have found that one of the challenging aspects of modern software development.
And do you think there's maybe different kind of metrics and goals that these teams are working to, so they're not aligned in terms of that speed? So where you have dev teams, traditionally they're kind of incentivized and measured against velocity, and those security teams are against vulnerability and security. So do you see that kind of mismatch there? And
absolutely.
And how does Veracode kind of help push that gap?
So I mean, to the first point, do we see it? Absolutely, we see it. Not in every customer. There are some organisations that we work with which have they've crossed the chasm to be true DevSecOps organisations, and you see great alignment between the security organisation and the DevOps organisation working together really well. But in a lot of organisations, we absolutely do see that there's a mismatch in the goals between the two different sides of the house. And a mismatch in goals means you're not aligned. Not aligned always means friction. It makes life harder. And can Veracode help with that? To an extent. I mean, we can't set the goals for the organisation. That's obviously down to the organisation to do. What we can very much help with is communication, enablement, helping the different parts of the organisation understand each other a bit better, and have visibility of what's going on in those other parts of the organisation. So as a SaaS platform, we're a central point of reporting, of visibility, of governance over the software security practices. So whilst the security team might not necessarily be getting up to their elbows in actually testing the developer's code as it's going through, what they can get is clear visibility of the results of the testing the developers have been doing.
Yeah.
So that can help to ease some of those uncomfortable conversations, some of those uncomfortable friction between the two different parts of the organisation.
So I know when I used to code, I always found it really difficult to keep up to date with all the changes in technology. There was always new frameworks coming out, new open source platforms to use, and making sure that you don't introduce vulnerabilities in your code across all of those is a challenge, right? So it's hard to keep, hard to know them all, hard to make sure that you're coding securely against those. How does Veracode kind of help with that that learning and staying up to date with everything?
Yeah, well, it's not just the developers. The security team is
well,
facing a rapidly changing landscape as well. Go back 10 years and cloud was a sort of vague tinkle on the horizon, I suppose. But today, cloud native, cloud deployment, infrastructure as code, all of these things are coming on at a hell of a rate. And both the development world and the security world have to try and keep up with that, have to try and stay in tune. For developers, well, Veracode provides a bunch of education technologies and resources that help, whether that's kind of more traditionally learning technologies, whether it's our security labs technology, which is it's a really interactive. We'll spin up a vulnerable application per user so that they can break it, learn how to break it, learn how to fix it, and be able to validate that they can no longer break it. And you do that actual hands-on keyboard stuff, actually writing the code that makes it more secure. So we've got those kind of things. We also do, we've got a team of application security consultants. And these are, I'm absolutely in awe of these guys. They typically come from a development background themselves. We've trained them up on the security side of things. And they become sort of like a phone a friend service for developers. So as a developer's trying to remediate an issue or has a big list of issues they've been given to work on, they can set up a call with one of our consultants who can walk them through, not on a line by line, here's what you need to type in, but a structure of how you need to approach this. And I think one of the great things about that, whilst it's not really classed as an education service, it's actually classed as a helping you to fix the problem kind of service. But there's no better learning than learning on the job. I'm sure I'm not alone in having gone on training courses, and then a week later I can barely remember what I studied on those courses. Whereas if you can use the knowledge immediately, you cement it, you kind of fix it in your brain. So that kind of on-the-job coaching does that job wonderfully well.
I know our team have taken advantage of that support. So a good example is where we've worked on a legacy application to add some new functionality into that. And it's been technology that's a few years old now. People quite aren't familiar with how it's been coded and some of those frameworks. And the team there to help remediate those issues when they come up certainly helps with that speed and getting the application out the door. And like you say, it's that continual hands-on understanding and learning that keeps people fresh and keeps that secure coding at front of mind. So fantastic service, and I think one very, very beneficial there.
Yeah.
So if we've got this being included in our DevOps pipelines, I'm sure you want to talk to me a bit about automation, because that's going to be key to making this work smoothly and quickly, right?
Yeah, and it's actually about automating the automation, isn't it? So the technology, the testing technology we have is all automated. More or less pointed at something, say, off you go, and it'll do its thing. Then in a DevOps pipeline, continuous integration pipeline typically, you want to automate the triggering of that automation, make that happen as a seamless part of the process. Even in an ideal world, and we can definitely help with this, even taking the output of that and automatically bringing that information into the right systems for the developers themselves. Yeah. Developers don't work off PDF reports. They don't even work off web page reports. They work from tickets, work items, however work is being managed in the organisation. Potentially even just sticky notes stuck on a board.
Yeah.
So the more that you can bring, first of all, the testing into a fully automated process, and then the way that the information coming out of the testing actually feeds into the developer's work stream, the more you can automate all of that process, the easier everything becomes.
So we can have our security teams setting the policy. We can have those pipelines automating the test to that policy, and then having work items created when there are defects and remediations needed for it. And
Absolutely.
then a support team to try and help fix those where needed. So yeah, automation obviously very key there to make that work smoothly and quickly. And I think the organisations where we've seen this go in, it has helped bring those two teams together and have a bit more of an aligned goal. But it is a cultural change, and it's a journey. It takes a little time for that to happen. So takeaway, what are the 3 top things if you're going to adopt dev security, application security, and DevOps? What would you say they would be?
Well, so the first one is very much what we've kind of talked quite a bit here, the alignment of goals.
Yeah.
It's both a requirement and a benefit of a DevSecOps approach. It's a requirement because if your goals aren't aligned, you're just not going to do it well. Yeah. But it's also a benefit because it almost comes as an output of taking things in this way, considering software security as part of DevOps. It sort of drags goals into alignment, or starts to drag goals into alignment. So that's thing number one. Getting that done, it's going to reduce friction. It's going to make life easier for everyone. I think the next one is enablement. And I think a lot of focus gets made on, we need to teach the developers to code securely. And absolutely, just like the developers need to know about how to do everything else that they do. And they do a lot of stuff. So absolutely, there's a need for enablement of the development organisation, the development side of the organisation. Also the security side of the organisation. The more that they understand what software delivery looks like, even what code looks like, it's going to help them. And I was having this conversation with someone the other day that the more that we move to even things like infrastructure as code, the more that the traditional types of things that security teams might have done, which would be vulnerability scanning and vulnerability and patch management, that shifts left as well. That becomes code. It becomes checking the IAC code and patching there, and then redeploying the code, and that redeploys the infrastructure. So developer enablement, but also the security organization needs enablement as well, so that they better understand the flow there. And then the third and final thing would be automate. Automate everything you possibly can. If you can get sort of analysis or testing done in an automated way and get it triggered in an automated way, brilliant. Step one. If you can get the results to flow and become part of the way that people work in an automated way, even better. I absolutely think that the future of application security, well, we already see it to an extent with component stuff, that you can automate the remediation of not using an up-to-date component. Absolutely, I think a future direction of research, certainly for us, and I would imagine for everyone else in the market, is how can we help to automate remediation of first-party code as well. So automate absolutely everything you can, because that's how software delivery gets done today.
Well, absolutely have to agree, especially on the automation, please. Automate everything. Thanks for today. It's been very useful. I'm sure all our viewers will appreciate everything. So thanks, John.
Thanks, James.